Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how to make a banana bread, and this recipe was developed for people who are on the keto diet or anyone that eats low carb. Just because you're on keto, you should not have to give up everything that you love. So just be careful though how much of this you eat, because of course it does still have calories, so you can't go crazy and eat tons of it, but if you have a slice, then I think you'll be fine. Okay, so as you can see, I've got all my stuff out in front of me. So the first thing that I'm going to do is preheat my oven to 350. And while we are waiting for that, we can get some of these other things prepped. Now, you see here, I've got some parchment paper. And this is kind of important, so I wouldn't like grease the pan or do anything like that. Use the parchment paper because the texture when you're developing these recipes for breads can be tricky. So we're going to put a piece of parchment paper in this pan. This is a 9x5 loaf pan. And we're going to put the paper in here in such a way so that it overhangs on the edges, and when the bread is cool, then we can just take the paper on both sides and lift it out, and that way it will we don't have to worry about the bread falling apart or anything like that, because we can just lift it easily out of the pan. Okay, so I tried to form the parchment paper inside the pan to show you what I'm talking about, but because I don't have any batter to put in it, it won't stay in the pan. So just try to form it into the pan, push it down as best you can. You want to have extra parchment paper on both sides of the pan, and there's some overhang on the ends as well, but I think we're going to have more overhang on the this side here. So you can just put that aside for now because it won't really stay down until the batter is in it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a medium-sized mixing bowl, and we're going to put 2 cups of almond flour and 1/4 cup of coconut flour in the bowl. And the reason why we're using 2 different kinds of flour is texture, because if you just use almond flour, the texture is going to be too wet, and if you use just coconut flour, it's going to be too dry. So we're going to use a mixture of the two, and that should give us just the right texture. Okay, so we've got our flour in the bowl. So that was 2 cups of almond flour and 1/4 cup of coconut flour. And the reason why we're using those and not like a wheat flour is because they don't raise your blood sugar level as much as a grain type flour would. So these are like keto type flours. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some more things to our bowl. We're going to put 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and we're going to put 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and we're going to put 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Okay, so we've got our baking powder, cinnamon, and salt in the bowl. So we're just going to put this bowl aside for now. And now we're going to need a large bowl. And in that bowl, I am going to put 6 tablespoons of butter. So just in case you're not familiar with baking, on butter, it actually has it all measured out for you. So if you take this out of the refrigerator about an hour before you want to start baking, it will be softened enough that you can use it in any recipe. So each one of these increments is a tablespoon. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're just going to cut on that line right there and put that little piece back in the fridge. Okay, so we've got our measured butter in the bowl here. And you know, I just realized that my oven beeped to tell me that it was ready, and I want to bring up a good point about oven temperatures. My oven is not new, far from it. So if you look at it, you'll see I have it set on 365, and I told you to set the temperature at 350. That is because my oven is not accurate, and I know that, so I compensate the temperature for it. There are oven thermometers that you can put in your oven and just leave them there, and that way when you're preheating the oven, you can check the temperature to see if it's where you want it to be. Because if you look in the oven thermometer in my oven right now, it says 350. So I know I have to set my oven on 365. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is this is really important in terms of baking, getting things on the right temperature, because otherwise it's just going to throw everything off if you're trying to follow a recipe. So if you find that your recipes never seem to come out the way you think they should, you might want to get an oven thermometer. They're inexpensive and it will save you a lot of headaches. All right, so back to our butter here. Okay, next we're gonna need half a cup of allulose. Now, what is allulose? Well, I just happened to do a video yesterday explaining what allulose is. So rather than spend a lot of time right now talking about that, you can go and watch that video. The reason why we're using allulose is because it has no calories, and we're trying to make this a keto recipe. So if you use sugar or something else, it's no longer going to be keto. So I'm going to put a half a cup of allulose in the bowl with the butter. Okay, so I've got my allulose in there, and I use the brand New Sugar, and I get this at the vitamin shop. Okay, the next step in this recipe is my least favorite part. We're going to take a hand mixer and we're going to cream together the butter and sugar. And the reason why I don't like this part is because even if you take the butter out ahead of time, because don't ever try to do this with butter just out of the refrigerator, because it will not work. It's just could even ruin your mixer. But this is just, I don't know, it's a messy part and I don't care for it. But we're going to cream this together. I don't know if I can do this and film it too, but I'm going to try to at least film part of it. I guess the reason why this is my least favorite part is because it's messy. Make sure that you use a large bowl, because if you don't, you're going to have butter and sugar all over your kitchen. Because even though I used a large bowl, a little bit of it seems to always still manage somehow to get outside this bowl area, even though I was using the slowest speed on the hand mixer. It still seems to get messy anyway. All right, so what are we going to do next? Next, we are going to put 4 large eggs into the mixture. Okay, so I've got my 4 eggs in there, and to that we are also going to add 2 teaspoons of banana extract. Don't use real bananas or it's not going to be keto, and it's not even going to work anyway, because then the moisture to dry ratio will be off. So make sure you use 2 teaspoons of banana extract, and we're also going to use 1/4 cup of unsweetened original almond milk, which you would think this would be really easy to find. I like to buy it in the aseptic packages because it's a smaller container than buying the big jumbo carton of almond milk. But anyways, if you're having a hard time finding this smaller size that's shelf stable, you do have to refrigerate it once it's open though. But if you're having trouble finding this, they've got this size at Target. Okay, so 1/4 cup of almond milk, unsweetened, and 2 teaspoons of banana extract are going in the bowl. Okay, so again, why did we use banana extract and why did we use almond milk? Because there's no carbs in the banana extract and there's only 1 carb in that almond milk that I used. If you used regular milk, it would be loaded with carbs. Okay, so we're going to go back to our hand mixer now. And we're going to mix this up. Mix all those wet ingredients into our butter and sugar. Okay, so you want to continue mixing that until you no longer have any large clumps of anything in this wet mixture. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to dump our dry ingredients into the large bowl with the wet ingredients. And then we're going to mix those ingredients together. Okay, so once it's mixed together, it should look something like this. You don't want to overbeat it because if you do, then it could mess up the texture. So just mix it until your ingredients are mixed together, but not overly mixed. Okay, so now we're going to take this and we're going to put it in our loaf pan on top of that parchment paper that I showed you before. Okay, so after you put the batter in the loaf pan, you want to just smooth it out a little bit and try to make it, somewhat level. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to smooth it out a little bit. And here's where it's going to be your preference. I'm going to use a 1/2 cup of walnuts. If you would prefer, you don't have to use the walnuts at all if you don't like nuts. If you like the nuts in the bread, then during that last step, right before I put it in the loaf pan, you can gently stir the walnuts into the mixture and do it that way. I happen to like them on top. I don't know why. I just like it that way. So this is 1/2 cup of walnuts, and I'm just gonna put those right on the top. So see how my parchment paper is sticking up on both sides? That's kind of important. So make sure that you rip off the right size piece of parchment paper before you put that batter in there. All right, we're going to bake this in the oven for 50 minutes. Then we're going to take it out and, well, I'll show you what we're going to do after that. There is one more step before it's finished. Okay guys, so it's been 50 minutes in the oven with the bread. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to put some aluminum foil over the top and then put it back in for 10 more minutes because the top is done, but the inside is not quite there. So we're going to give it 10 more minutes with some foil on the top. Okay, now that we've given our banana bread the additional 10 minutes cooking time, we can take it out of the oven, put it on some kind of heat protectant plate of some sort. What I'm trying to say is don't put it on top of the oven because the oven is going to be hot and you're going to want to cool this in the pan in its parchment paper for at least a couple hours. This has got to cool completely before you remove it from the pan. And that has to do with the texture, and we're trying to get this banana bread to be similar to the consistency of a regular banana bread. And if you take it out too soon and slice it and all that, it's not going to be like that. So just put it on something that isn't going to burn your counter, and remove the aluminum foil and let it cool down completely in the pan. Okay, so after your banana bread has been cooling for a couple of hours, you're gonna lift this out of the pan by the parchment paper and transfer it to a plate. Okay, and this is gonna be the hardest part of all, because now your whole kitchen smells so great from baking the banana bread, but you have to wait until the next day to slice this. I know it's going to be torture, but if you don't, it's going to fall apart and it's not going to be the right texture. So it has to rest on the plate in the parchment paper until tomorrow. So it'll be worth the wait. That's all I can say. This is going to be really delicious. So you'll be glad that you waited. Bye, guys.